Get your filthy black hands off my car! Get out of the way! Immediately! Get out!
The voice echoed in the rain, cold, cruel, full of contempt.
A little black girl squatting next to my luxury car in the middle of the night? I know exactly what you are. A filthy thief!
2 bodyguards beside him, his finger pointed directly at her face.
Black dogs like you steal anything you find beautiful. You disgust me. Stay away from my car before you regret ever setting foot in this alley.
She didn't run. She didn't cry. She slowly raised her hand and showed him what she found under the car. His face turned pale. What she held wasn't stolen goods. It was what was about to end his life. And this girl, the one he just called filthy, saved him. Maya Anderson hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in 3 years. And tonight was going to be the longest night of her life. She just didn't know it yet. 5:15 a.m. Gray's Ferry, South Philadelphia. The alarm didn't wake her. She was already up. She'd been staring at the ceiling for 20 minutes, counting the cracks in the plaster. Counting was easier than thinking. Thinking meant worrying, and worrying never paid a single bill. She swung her legs off the bed. The linoleum floor hit her bare feet like ice. The space heater in the corner hummed, but it hadn't really worked since last winter. She kept it on anyway. The sound was company. The row house was narrow. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen the size of a closet, peeling wallpaper, a leaking faucet she'd fixed 3 times with tape, the smell of instant coffee and old wood. On the fridge, held up by magnets, were medical bills. 5 of them. Some had red stamps. Overdue. The total? Over $22,000. Maya didn't need to read them anymore. She had the number memorized. It followed her like a shadow. She poured coffee, took 1 sip, then walked to the next room. Grandma Ruth was asleep. 71 years old, diabetes, early-stage kidney failure. The oxygen machine beside her bed hummed softly. Maya's father, James Anderson, was a mechanic, Army-trained, hands that could fix anything. Her mother held on for 2 more years. Cancer took her quietly on a Tuesday afternoon while Maya was at school. Daytime, Grady Brothers Garage, an auto body repair shop 6 blocks from home. She handled intake paperwork, answering phones, writing up estimates, filing invoices. She was the only woman on staff, the only black employee. The mechanics treated her like furniture. Polite enough, but invisible. What they didn't know was that Maya understood engines better than half of them. One afternoon, she overheard a mechanic tell a customer the problem was a bad caliper. Maya glanced at the lift, saw the fluid trail. That wasn't the caliper. She said quietly, "That's a fractured brake line. Look at the drip pattern." The mechanic stared at her, rolled his eyes. But the shop owner, Carl Grady, heard it. He checked. Maya was right. Carl didn't say anything to her. Not a thank you, not a nod. He just walked away. But he remembered. Nighttime. Bellini's, a small Italian restaurant in a nicer part of the city, near Rittenhouse. She bussed tables, cleared plates, wiped down booths. The tips were small. The hours were long. She took the bus both ways, 40 minutes each direction. Between shifts, Maya had one ritual. Every evening she stopped at the house next door. Lorraine Cooper, 80 years old, lived alone, oxygen tank by her chair. Maya brought whatever food she could spare, a plate of rice, some bread, once half a sandwich from Bellini's. She never stayed long, 10 minutes, just enough to check the oxygen, fix the TV remote, make sure Lorraine had water by the bed. Lorraine always said the same thing. "Girl, you carry too much for somebody so young." And Maya always answered the same way. "Carrying it means I'm still strong enough." She meant it, not as poetry, as fact. Before she left the house each morning, Maya reached into the top drawer of her dresser. She pulled out an old multi-tool wrench, a military green Leatherman, scratched and worn. Her father's. He carried it every day in the army, every day in the shop. It was the last thing she had of his. She didn't use it often, but she carried it in her backpack like a heartbeat. It reminded her of who she was, where she came from, what her hands were built to do. She zipped it into her bag, took one last look at the medical bills on the fridge, took one last breath, and walked out the door. Maya Anderson was 22 years old. She had no savings, no degree, no safety net. She had a sick grandmother, a dead-end job, and a backpack full of someone else's tools. But she had something most people lose along the way. She still believed, quietly, stubbornly, without evidence, that being good mattered. That kindness wasn't weakness. That steady hands could still fix something. She just didn't know that tonight, those steady hands would be tested in a way she never imagined. She was 12 minutes from clocking out. 12 minutes from catching the last bus home. 12 minutes from never being in that parking lot. But life doesn't care about your schedule. 10:45 p.m., Bellini's restaurant, near Rittenhouse, Philadelphia. The rain had been falling since sundown. Not gentle rain, the kind that hits the ground like it's angry. February cold, the kind that goes through your jacket, through your skin, straight into your bones. Maya wiped down her last table. The restaurant was nearly empty. A couple in the corner paying their check, the kitchen shutting down, the smell of garlic and dish soap. She untied her apron, folded it, tucked it into her bag beside her father's Leatherman. Her shoulders ached. Her feet ached more. 8 hours at the garage, 5 hours here. She could feel every single one of them. She said goodnight to the cook, pushed through the back door into the alley. The cold hit her like a wall. The alley was narrow, dumpsters on one side, a single light overhead, buzzing and flickering, puddles everywhere. The rain was coming sideways now, drumming against the brick walls. That's when she saw it. A black Rolls-Royce Cullinan, parked near the alley entrance. Engine off. Hazard lights blinking orange through the rain. The car looked like it cost more than every house on Maya's block combined. 2 men in dark suits stood near the restaurant's front entrance. Broad shoulders, hands clasped in front of them. They weren't waiting for a table. They were watching the street, scanning, like soldiers. Maya didn't think much of it. Rich people ate at Bellini's all the time. She pulled her hoodie over her head and started walking toward the bus stop. But something made her slow down. As she passed the rear of the Rolls-Royce, something caught her eye. Low, under the rear quarter panel, near the wheel well, a faint red light, blinking, steady, every 2 seconds. Most people would have kept walking. Most people wouldn't have even noticed. But Maya Anderson grew up crawling under cars with her father. She knew every part that belonged beneath a vehicle, every wire, every bracket, every hose. And that light didn't belong there. She stopped, looked around. The two suited men had gone inside the restaurant. The alley was empty, just her and the rain. She crouched down. The puddle soaked through her jeans instantly, cold water up to her knees. She tilted her head and looked underneath the car. Her breath stopped. A small black box, roughly the size of a cigarette pack, was zip-tied directly to the fuel line. Wires ran from the box into the undercarriage. A tiny red LED pulsed like a heartbeat. Steady. Patient. Counting. Maya had never seen a bomb in real life, but she knew what this was. Her father had served in the army. He told her stories. He described the devices they found on roadsides in places she couldn't pronounce. He told her what to look for, what to never touch. And right now she was looking at exactly what he described. Her mind raced. She should call the police. She should run. She should get as far from this car as possible. Every survival instinct in her body screamed, "Walk away. This is not your problem." She didn't know whose car this was. She didn't know why someone wanted them dead. She didn't know if the device was on a timer or a trigger. She didn't know if touching it would be the last thing she ever did. All she knew was her father's voice, clear as the rain. If you see something wrong, and you can fix it, and you walk away, that's on you forever. She reached into her bag, pulled out the Leatherman. Her hands were numb. The metal was slippery. Rain ran down her face, into her eyes. She started cutting the first zip tie. That's when the restaurant door slammed open. Dominic Castellano stepped into the rain. 62 years old, silver hair slicked back, a cashmere overcoat that probably cost more than Maya's rent for a year. His face was carved from stone, hard jaw, cold eyes, the kind of expression that made people look away. Behind him, Eddie Fontaine, built like a wall. His right hand slid instinctively inside his jacket. The movement was subtle, but it said everything. Dominic saw her immediately, a young black woman, on her knees, hands under his car, in the dark, in the rain. He didn't ask questions. He didn't wait for an explanation. He walked toward her. Each step deliberate, controlled. This was a man used to people being afraid of him. And then he started screaming. But what Dominic Castellano didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that the girl on her knees in front of his car wasn't stealing anything. She was saving his life, and it was going to cost her everything she had left. What Maya did next would be talked about in this city for years. But in that moment, she had no idea. She just knew she wasn't leaving.
"Get your filthy black hands off my car! Get out of the way, immediately!"
Dominic's voice hit her like a slap. Every word soaked in disgust, in hatred, in the kind of contempt that doesn't see a person, just a color. A little black girl squatting next to my luxury car in the middle of the night? I know exactly what you are. A filthy thief. Maya didn't move. Her knees were in the puddle, the Leatherman in her right hand, the rain hammering her back. She could feel the heat of his fury 3 feet away. His shadow fell over her like a threat. Black dogs like you steal anything you find beautiful. You disgust me. Stay away from my car before you regret ever setting foot in this alley. Eddie stood behind Dominic, hand inside his jacket, ready. His eyes locked on Maya like a scope on a target. Any other person would have dropped the tool and run. Any other person would have screamed back, cursed, fought. Any other person would have let the bomb do its job. After words like those, who could blame them? But Maya Anderson was not any other person. She looked up at him, rain running down her face, eyes steady, voice calm, not submissive, not afraid, just clear. Sir, I'm not stealing anything. There's something under your car, wired to the fuel line. If you start this engine, you die. The words landed like a punch. Dominic froze. The rage on his face cracked. Just for a second, a microfracture. Because in his world, this kind of threat wasn't paranoia. It was real. It had happened before. He had buried people because of moments exactly like this. He looked at Eddie. One word. Check. Eddie moved fast. He knelt beside the rear wheel, pulled a flashlight from his coat, aimed it under the chassis. Silence. 2 seconds. 3. The rain filling the gap. Maya could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Then Eddie's voice. Low, steady, but Maya could hear the fear underneath. She's right, boss. There's a device, black box, wired directly into the fuel rail. It's a bomb. If you had turned that key... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Dominic stared at the car, then at Maya, then back at the car. His jaw tightened so hard the muscles in his neck stood out like cables. His hands slowly curled into fists at his sides. Eddie stood up, pulled out his phone, stepped away. Maya caught fragments of the call. It's rigged to the fuel system. No, not a tracker. It's live. Yes, live. Get a team here, now. Dominic turned back to Maya. She was still on her knees, still holding the leather man, still soaked, still shaking from the cold. The man who had just called her a filthy thief was now looking at her like he was seeing a human being for the first time. How did you spot that? My dad was a mechanic, Army trained. He taught me what belongs under a car, and what doesn't. You could have walked away. I know. You could have let it go off. After what I just said to you, most people would have. Maya looked at him, steady. No anger, no satisfaction, just truth. I heard every word you said, every single one, and I'm still here. Because my father didn't raise me to walk away from someone who needs help, even someone who doesn't think I'm worth helping. The rain filled the silence between them. Dominic had no response. For a man who controlled entire rooms with his voice, who made grown men lower their eyes, he had nothing. The silence was louder than the storm. Eddie came back. His face was tight. His voice was low. Team's on the way. 15 minutes. Boss, we need to move you to the secondary vehicle. Now. Dominic didn't move. He was still staring at Maya, like he was trying to understand something that didn't fit inside his world. Like someone had placed a puzzle piece on his table that belonged to a completely different picture. What's your name? Maya. Maya Anderson. Are you hurt? She looked down at her hands. The cold had turned her fingers white. The zip-tie edges had left red marks across her palms. Her knuckles were stiff. She closed her fists to hide them. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. Her hands were numb. Her knees were aching from the concrete. Her entire body was shaking, not from fear, but from the kind of cold that settles into your chest and doesn't leave, the kind that makes your teeth hurt. But she said she was fine, because that's what she always said, because nobody ever asked twice. Eddie opened the door of the second vehicle, a black SUV that had pulled up silently from the street. Warm air spilled out. Inside, leather seats, a laptop glowing on the back seat, a man on the phone who used the word boss without looking up. Dominic turned toward the SUV, took 2 steps, then stopped. He turned back to Maya. She was standing now, wrapping her hands in her apron, adjusting her backpack, getting ready to walk to the bus stop. In the rain, in the cold, alone. Like this was just another Tuesday. Like she hadn't just saved a man's life. Like she hadn't just risked her own. The bus stop was 4 blocks away. Her grandmother was waiting. The bills were still on the fridge. Tomorrow she had 2 shifts again. Nothing had changed. The world hadn't paused. The rain hadn't stopped. Nobody was going to write this moment down. She put the Leatherman back in her bag, pulled her hoodie tight, turned toward the end of the alley, and Dominic Castellano, a man who made people fear him for a living, who hadn't felt guilt in decades, watched a 22-year-old girl in a wet apron walk into the rain like she had done nothing extraordinary. She didn't look back, not once. He watched until she disappeared around the corner, until the sound of her footsteps faded under the rain. Then he got into the SUV, closed the door, said nothing for a long time. Eddie glanced at him in the rearview mirror, waiting for an order, waiting for the rage, waiting for a name, someone to blame, someone to hunt. But Dominic wasn't thinking about the bomb. He was looking at his hands, the hands she just saved. Dominic Castellano had offered money to hundreds of people in his life. Lawyers, politicians, judges, men who killed for him, men who lied for him. Every single one of them took it. Every single one. Nobody had ever said what Maya said next. The SUV caught up with her 2 blocks from the alley. She was walking fast, head down, arms wrapped around herself. The rain had soaked through every layer. Her hoodie clung to her skin. Her sneakers made a wet sound with every step. The SUV pulled alongside her. The rear window rolled down. Dominic's voice. Different now. Not screaming, not commanding. Something she hadn't heard from him before. Get in. You'll freeze out here. Maya kept walking. Didn't look at the car. I'm fine. My bus stop is right there. There's no bus coming in this weather. Not at this hour. Get in. I'll have my driver take you home. She slowed. Looked at the SUV. Looked at the rain. Looked at her hands, stiff, red, trembling. She thought about Grandma Ruth waiting up. She thought about the 40-minute bus ride in soaking wet clothes. She got in. The warmth hit her like a blanket. She hadn't realized how cold she was until the heat wrapped around her. Her body started shaking harder, not from cold anymore, but from the cold leaving. Eddie drove. Dominic sat across from her. Between them, silence. The kind of silence that happens when someone knows they owe something they can't name. Dominic reached into his overcoat, pulled out a thick fold of cash, didn't count it. He held it out toward her. Take this, for what you did tonight. Maya looked at the money, then at him, then back at the money. She shook her head. No, thank you. Dominic leaned forward. You don't understand what you just did. That device. If I had started the car, I understand exactly what I did. Her voice wasn't angry, wasn't proud, just steady. But I didn't do it for money. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Everyone says that. Nobody means it. I mean it. Dominic studied her face, searching for the angle, the play, the hidden ask. In his world, everyone wanted something. Everyone had a price. Generosity was a mask. Kindness was a transaction. But Maya's face had nothing to sell. No performance. No expectation. Just a tired 22-year-old girl who wanted to go home. He lowered the money, slowly, like he was putting down something heavier than cash. Then he reached into his breast pocket, pulled out a business card. It was thick, cream-colored stock, the kind you feel between your fingers. No company name, no title. Just a phone number, embossed in black ink. And in the corner, a small crest, a lion holding a key. He held it out to her. If you ever need anything at all, you call this number, day or night. Maya took the card, glanced at it for half a second, didn't read it closely. She tucked it into her apron pocket the way you tuck a receipt, without thinking, without weight. She didn't know what she was holding. The SUV stopped in front of her row house in Gray's Ferry. Maya opened the door. The cold rushed back in. Thank you for the ride. She stepped out, closed the door, walked up the steps to her porch. Didn't look back. Through the tinted window, Dominic watched her disappear inside. Eddie glanced at the rearview mirror. Where to, boss? Dominic didn't answer right away. He was still looking at the front door of the row house, at the peeling paint, the crooked mailbox, the porch light that flickered like it was running out of fight. A girl who lived here, in this house, on this street, had just saved his life. And she asked for nothing. Nothing. He looked down at the cash still in his hand. It felt small. For the first time in a long time, money felt completely useless. Home, he said quietly. Take me home. Maya went to sleep that night thinking it was over. A strange night. A scary night. But over. She had no idea it was just beginning. Because Dominic Castellano doesn't forget. And he never, ever lets a debt go unpaid. The next morning, Grady Brothers' garage. Maya clocked in at 8. Same routine, same desk, same stack of intake forms. Her hands were still sore from the night before. The red marks from the zip ties had faded to thin pink lines across her palms. She kept her fists closed when anyone walked by. At 10 o'clock, she noticed something outside the window. A black sedan, parked across the street. Engine off. Tinted windows. It hadn't been there when she arrived. Now it sat perfectly still, like it was watching. Maya stared at it for a long moment. Then a customer walked in and she went back to work. The sedan didn't move for 2 hours. At lunch, a delivery truck pulled up to the garage. The driver carried in a large box. No return address, no shipping label, just Maya's name, handwritten in black ink on the top. Carl Grady looked at her. You order something? No. She opened it carefully. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a brand new, professional-grade mechanics tool set. Wrenches, ratchets, sockets, torque handles, every piece polished chrome. Top of the line, the kind of set that cost more than $2,000. A small white card sat on top. No name, no logo, Just 2 words in neat handwriting. For steady hands. D.C. Maya's breath caught. She picked up the card, read it again. D.C. She thought of the man in the rain, the overcoat, the cash she refused, the business card she barely glanced at. She reached into her bag, found the cream-colored card from last night, the lion holding a key, the initials she hadn't bothered to read. D.C. That evening, Lorraine Cooper's house. Maya sat in her usual chair. Lorraine was watching the local news. The volume was low, but Maya heard it clearly. A news anchor's voice. Philadelphia police are investigating a suspected bombing attempt targeting a vehicle connected to the Castellano organization, one of the city's most powerful. The screen showed a photo. An older man, silver hair, hard jaw. Maya's stomach dropped. Lorraine muttered at the TV. Those Castellano people run half this city. Dangerous folk. Maya said nothing. Her hand was in her pocket, gripping the cream-colored card so hard her knuckles turned white. The man in the alley, the bodyguards, the bomb under the car. She didn't help a businessman. She saved one of the most powerful and most dangerous men in Philadelphia. And now he knew her name. He knew where she worked. And he was watching. The question was, what did he want? But the twist wasn't who Dominic Castellano was. Maya could have guessed that. The car, the bodyguards, the bomb, the power in his voice, all of it pointed in one direction. No, the real twist was why her kindness broke him. And it had everything to do with someone Dominic had lost. Castellano Estate, Main Line, Philadelphia. That same night, the house sat behind iron gates at the end of a long gravel drive. Old stone, ivy climbing the walls. The kind of property that whispered money so loudly it didn't need to shout. Inside, the study was dark. Oak bookshelves floor to ceiling. Oil paintings in gold frames. A glass of whiskey on the desk, half empty, untouched for an hour. The ice had melted. Dominic sat behind the desk, still in his overcoat. He hadn't changed since the alley. He hadn't spoken since the car ride home. Eddie stood by the door, waiting. He'd seen Dominic angry before. He'd seen him cold. He'd seen him dangerous. He had never seen him like this. We traced the device. Eddie's voice was careful, measured. It was Brennan's people. Tommy Brennan. Dominic didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't slam the desk. The name should have set him on fire. Tommy Brennan. The man who had been circling his territory for 2 years. The man who wanted everything Dominic had built. But Dominic wasn't looking at Eddie. He was looking at a photograph. A silver frame on the corner of his desk. A young woman, early 20s, dark hair, bright smile. A graduation cap tilted slightly on her head. Her eyes, the same eyes as Dominic's, but warmer, softer. Full of something his had lost a long time ago. Nina Castellano, his daughter, his only child, the only person in his life who ever made him want to be someone different. Eddie saw where Dominic's eyes had gone. He shifted his weight, said nothing. Nina had died 3 years ago. She was 23. She was driving home from a volunteer shift at a women's shelter in North Philly. A Tuesday evening, clear road, light traffic. Her car, a modest Honda she insisted on driving despite Dominic offering her anything she wanted, exploded at a red light. The fuel system had been tampered with. A small device, wired to the engine, detonated remotely. The police called it a possible mechanical failure. Dominic knew better. He knew it was a bomb. He knew it was meant for him. A message, a warning, a punishment. But it found Nina instead, his daughter. The girl who spent her weekends at shelters, who was studying social work, who once told him, "Dad, you could use your power to help people instead of scaring them." She was the opposite of everything Dominic had built, and she was the only thing in his life that mattered. After Nina died, Dominic shut down. Not publicly. Publicly, he became more ruthless than ever. He expanded territory. He crushed rivals. He made Tommy Brennan's life a living hell. But privately, inside the walls of this study, behind the locked door, he stopped. He stopped eating dinner at the table. He stopped sleeping in the bedroom. He stopped answering calls from the few people who might have been called friends. He sat in this chair, drank this whiskey, looked at this photograph for 3 years, until tonight. Dominic picked up the frame, held it under the desk lamp. Nina's smile, her cap, her eyes. The girl last night. His voice was low, almost a whisper. She was about Nina's age. Eddie said nothing. He knew where this was going. He'd known since the alley. Nina would have done the same thing. Dominic's thumb traced the edge of the frame. She would have crawled under that car. In the rain. She would have helped a stranger. She wouldn't have asked for anything. He set the photo down, but he didn't let go of it. Nina died because of a bomb in a car nobody checked, a device nobody saw. His voice cracked, just barely, like a hairline fracture in stone. And tonight, this girl nobody would look at twice, she found a bomb in my car. She saw what nobody else saw. She did what nobody else did. The parallel was so precise it felt like the universe had drawn it with a ruler. Nina died because of a bomb no one found. Maya lived because she found the bomb no one was looking for. Dominic's daughter was killed by the same method that almost killed him tonight. And the person who saved him was everything Nina had been. Young, kind, brave, invisible to the world. And she did it despite being screamed at, humiliated, called an animal. Eddie watched Dominic's face. He had served this man for 19 years, through wars, through losses, through funerals. He had never seen tears in Dominic Castellano's eyes. He saw them now. Dominic picked up his phone, dialed a number. His voice was steady again, controlled, but different. Something underneath had shifted, like a foundation that had cracked just enough to let light through. "I want everything on Maya Anderson, where she lives, where she works, who she takes care of, what she needs. I want it by morning." Eddie stepped forward. "What are you going to do?" Dominic looked at the photograph of Nina one last time. "Something my daughter would have done." He set the frame down, gently, the way you set down something sacred. And for the first time in 3 years, Dominic Castellano left the study before midnight. Maya thought the tools were the end of it. A strange gift from a strange night. Expensive, yes. Generous, yes. But over. She was wrong. Because what Dominic Castellano had planned wasn't a gift. It was a debt. And men like him don't leave debts unpaid. Saturday morning, Gray's Ferry. The sun came out for the first time in a week. Maya was on the front porch, helping Grandma Ruth into her chair. A blanket over Ruth's knees, a cup of tea in her hands, the oxygen tank beside her, hissing softly. It was the only morning Maya didn't work. The only morning she could sit still. She was peeling an orange for Ruth when she heard the engine. A black sedan, the same one from outside the garage. It turned the corner slowly and stopped in front of the house. Maya stood up. Her body went tight. Eddie stepped out of the driver's seat, walked around, opened the rear door. Dominic Castellano stepped onto the sidewalk. He looked different in daylight. No overcoat, just a simple navy blazer over a white shirt. No bodyguards, just Eddie. His face looked older in the sun, softer, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. He looked at the house, the peeling paint, the cracked steps, the mailbox hanging from one screw. He took it all in without expression. Then he looked at Ruth. He walked to the bottom of the porch steps. Didn't come up. Didn't invade. He stood below them, a man who owned half the city, looking up at an elderly woman in a plastic chair. "Good morning, ma'am. My name is Dominic. I'm here because your granddaughter did something extraordinary for me, and I'd like your permission to speak with her." Ruth looked at him over her tea, then at Maya, then back at him. "You got manners. That's a start. Come on up." Dominic climbed the steps. Eddie stayed by the car. Maya stood with her arms crossed, guarded. She hadn't told Ruth about the alley, about the bomb, about any of it. Dominic sat on the top step, not in a chair, on the step, below Ruth, below Maya, like a man who had come to ask, not to tell. He spoke quietly, directly, no performance. "Miss Anderson, I won't waste your time. I've spent this week learning about your situation. I know about your father. I know about your mother. I know about the medical bills on your fridge. I know about your 2 jobs. And I know you're the most talented person in that garage, and nobody there sees it." Maya's jaw tightened. She didn't like being studied, didn't like being a file on someone's desk. "I didn't ask for—" "I know you didn't. That's why I'm here." He paused, looked at Ruth, then back at Maya. "I'd like to offer you 3 things, not as charity, as a debt repaid, because what you did in that alley, no amount of money covers that. But this is what I can do." He laid it out, simply, specifically, no drama. First, Grandma Ruth's medical care. He had already contacted Dr. Whitfield at Jefferson Hospital, one of the best kidney specialists in Pennsylvania. Full treatment, every appointment, every test, every medication. All costs covered through the Nina Castellano Foundation, a foundation Dominic had created in his daughter's name to support families affected by sudden loss. Ruth's hand trembled on her teacup. She set it down carefully. Second, Maya's education. A full scholarship to Penn Technical Institute's Automotive Technology program, one of the top trade schools in the state. Tuition, books, certification fees, and a monthly living stipend, enough for Maya to quit one of her 2 jobs and focus on learning. Maya's arms slowly uncrossed. She stared at him. Third, a future. When she graduated, Dominic would fund the launch of her own auto repair shop in Gray's Ferry. Not a gift, a business investment. She would own it, 100%. He would provide startup capital and the first year's lease on a vacant storefront property he already owned in the neighborhood. a building that had sat empty for years, waiting for something that mattered. The porch was silent. A bird sang somewhere down the block. The oxygen tank hissed softly beside Ruth's chair. Maya didn't speak for a long time. She wasn't calculating. She wasn't weighing options. She was trying to hold herself together. Because everything she had prayed for, everything she had whispered into the ceiling at 3 a.m, was being offered to her on a Saturday morning by a man she had saved in the rain. She looked at Grandma Ruth. Ruth's eyes were wet. Her chin was trembling, but she nodded, slowly, once. Maya turned back to Dominic. "Why? You don't know me?" Dominic's voice dropped, almost to a whisper. "You remind me of someone I lost. And I think she sent you to that alley." The air changed. Something passed between them that was bigger than business, bigger than debt. Something that didn't have a word, but they both felt it. Maya extended her hand, but before he took it, she spoke. "One condition." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "When the shop opens, I want to offer free car safety inspections for anyone in this neighborhood who can't afford a mechanic. Brakes, fluids, tires, the things that prevent accidents, the things that save lives." She paused. "My dad died because of a car nobody checked. Your daughter died because of a car nobody checked. I don't want that to happen to anyone else." Dominic looked at her for a long time. His eyes glistened, but nothing fell. Then he took her hand, her palm, still marked from the zip ties, pressed into his. "Deal." Within 6 months, Maya Anderson's life was unrecognizable. But what changed even more than her life was her neighborhood. Month 1. Maya enrolled at Penn Technical Institute. She walked into the workshop on the first day carrying her father's Leatherman in her back pocket. She was the youngest student in her cohort, one of only 2 women. The rest of the class looked at her the way the mechanics at Grady Brothers used to, like she was in the wrong room. By the end of the first week, her instructor pulled her aside. "Where did you learn to read an engine like that?" "My father. He taught you well." She didn't tell him her father had been dead for 8 years. She just nodded and went back to work. Month 3. Grandma Ruth started treatment with Dr. Whitfield at Jefferson Hospital. The first appointment took 4 hours. Ruth was nervous. She'd never been inside a hospital that clean, that quiet, that careful with her. The results came back cautiously hopeful. Ruth's kidney function had stabilized. Not cured, not reversed, but no longer declining. For the first time in 2 years, the word manageable appeared in her chart. Maya came home that evening and found Ruth standing in the kitchen. Not sitting, standing, stirring a pot of soup, humming a hymn she used to sing at church. Maya leaned against the doorframe and watched. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her grandmother was humming. That was enough. Month 6. Maya finished her first 2 certification modules, top marks in both. Her instructors noted something they couldn't teach, an instinct for machines. The way she listened before she touched. The way she paused before she diagnosed. Like she was having a conversation with the engine. She quit Bellini's. No more bussing tables. No more midnight buses in the rain. She kept working part-time at Grady Brothers, but now as a certified technician, not behind the desk, on the floor, under the lifts, doing the work she was born to do. Carl Grady gave her a proper uniform, with her name stitched on the chest. The mechanic who had rolled his eyes at her brake line diagnosis a year ago now came to her station to ask questions. She answered every one. No smugness, no revenge. Just steady hands doing steady work. Month 14. Anderson Auto Care opened its doors. A corner lot on Whitfield Street in Gray's Ferry. The building that had sat vacant for 6 years, windows boarded, walls tagged with graffiti, was now freshly painted. Warm gray exterior, a hand-lettered sign above the door in dark green and white. Inside, 2 professional lifts, a clean waiting area with plastic chairs and free coffee. A small shelf of children's books in the corner for mothers who had nowhere to leave their kids. Opening day. A line wrapped around the block. Not because people needed their cars fixed that day, because they needed to see it. A young black woman from their neighborhood with her name on the building in a place that used to be nothing. On a street people used to drive past without looking. Pastor Harold Davis from the Grays Ferry Community Church came to cut the ribbon. He said a prayer. The block clapped. Ruth sat in a folding chair near the entrance, oxygen tank beside her, tears rolling down her face, clapping louder than anyone. The free inspection program launched that same morning. Maya called it Steady Hands Saturdays, named after her father's words. Every Saturday, open to anyone. Brakes, fluids, tires, no appointment, no questions, no charge. Within the first year, Steady Hands Saturdays served over 800 vehicles. 3 serious safety issues were caught before they became tragedies, including a corroded brake line on a school van carrying 14 children. Maya hired 2 apprentices from the neighborhood, both young, both unable to afford trade school. She paid for their certifications herself, out of her own pocket, because someone had done the same for her. Lorraine Cooper, the elderly neighbor Maya used to visit with plates of food, now sat in the waiting area of Anderson Auto Care every Saturday morning. Same chair, same spot. She told every single customer who walked in the same thing. I knew that girl when she was carrying plates in the rain. Now look at her. And Dominic? He never visited the shop publicly, never put his name on anything. But once a month, Eddie dropped off an envelope. Not money, a handwritten note. Sometimes business advice. Sometimes just a single line. Nina would be proud. Maya kept every note in a drawer beneath the cash register. She never told anyone about them. But on hard days, and there were still hard days, she opened that drawer and read them, one by one. 1 year after that night in the rain, Maya found herself standing in an alley again. But this time, everything was different. February, a rainy evening, Gray's Ferry. Maya was locking up Anderson Auto Care. The last customer had left an hour ago. The lights were off inside. The sign above the door glowed faintly in the wet dark. She walked down the side alley toward her car, a modest used sedan she had bought with her first month's profit. She repaired it herself, repainted it herself. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. The rain was light tonight, not angry like last year. Soft, almost gentle, like the sky remembered what happened here and decided to be kinder this time. That's when she saw him, a teenage boy, 15, maybe 16, crouched beside a parked car in the lot next door, shivering, a cheap flashlight in one hand, his face close to the ground, peering under the vehicle. Maya stopped, watched him for a moment, then walked over. "Hey, What are you looking at? The boy, startled, jumped to his feet, eyes wide, defensive, the way kids in this neighborhood learn to be when strangers asked questions. I'm not doing anything wrong. I didn't say you were. What's under the car? He hesitated, looked at her, looked at the building behind her, the sign that said Anderson Auto Care. Something in his shoulders relaxed, just a little. There's something dripping. Under here. I think it's brake fluid. My mom drives this car to work every day. My little sister rides in the back seat. Maya crouched beside him. She pulled out her father's Leatherman, the same one, still scratched, still worn, still warm from her pocket. She aimed the boy's flashlight under the car. He was right. A slow leak from a corroded brake line. Not dramatic, not obvious. The kind of thing you don't notice until it's too late. Good eye, she said. You just saved your mom a lot of trouble. She fixed it right there, on the wet ground, in the rain. Took 15 minutes. She didn't charge a cent. The boy watched her hands the whole time. Steady. Sure. Like they'd done this 1,000 times. How'd you learn to do that? Maya wiped her hands on her jeans, smiled. My dad taught me. And somebody reminded me that what he taught me matters. She stood, reached into her jacket, pulled out a card. Anderson Auto Care, free apprenticeship program. What's your name? Deshawn? Deshawn, you ever think about learning to work on cars? He shrugged. Nobody ever offered to teach me. Come by Saturday. I'll teach you. He looked at the card, then at her, then he nodded. Maya walked back to her car. The rain was slowing. She passed under a streetlight and paused, reached into her pocket, touched the Leatherman, looked up at the sky. Thanks, Dad. She got in her car, started the engine. The wipers swept once across the glass. In the rear-view mirror, she could see Deshawn still standing under the streetlight, reading the card, holding it carefully, the way you hold something that might change your life. The way Maya once held a cream-colored card with a lion on it. The circle was complete. But the kindness? That was just getting started. And that's where this story ends. Or maybe that's where it begins. Because stories like Maya's don't stay in one alley. They ripple. They spread. They show up in a teenage boy reading a business card under a streetlight, in a grandmother humming in her kitchen, in a neighborhood that finally has a reason to believe things can change. So if this story made you feel something, if it made you pause, even for a second, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because we tell stories like this every single week. Stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Stories that remind us who we really are. And one last thing. I want to ask you, have you ever helped someone who didn't deserve it? Someone who never said thank you? Tell me about it in the comments, because I think those stories matter. I think your story matters. Until next time, stay kind, stay steady, and remember, steady hands fix everything. Okay, like, imagine this, right? A mafia boss is literally screaming in your face, calling you trash. And you still save his life? Like, bro, what? Nah, that's not being soft. That's being built different for him. Don't let nobody's ugly words change your heart, yeah? Because anybody can turn cold. Anybody can get bitter. But staying good even when people are ugly to you? That's real strength. That's power. That's character. That's you. Okay, like, imagine this, right? A mafia boss is literally screaming in your face, calling you trash, and you still save his life? Like, bro, what? Nah, that's not being soft. That's being built different. Don't let nobody's ugly words change your heart, yeah? Because anybody can turn cold. Anybody can get bitter. But staying good, even when people are ugly to you, that's real strength. That's power. That's character. That's you.